Good evening to you guys. Haven't seen you in since last week, but wanted to give you a heads up on our class coming up in a couple of weeks. Meeting Thursday from 6 to 10. That's November 11, and then on Friday all day, November 12th. I suggest you go to the Discovery on this particular course and take a look at the syllabus. Everything should be on Discovery. It's been loaded there, and I want you to be able to just sort of wrap your head around where we're going to be. I know that you're finishing up Dr. Ziefel's course, but the clock is ticking, and I just want to make sure that as you finish that, you're ready to move ahead into this course. So first of all, just keep in mind that the first assignment is due during class time, just by the end of class on November 12th. The guidelines for this are in the syllabus, but most importantly, you've done a lot of this work already in terms of your journaling. It's just a matter of particularly looking at the interviews we had at each of the churches that we were at, the churches in Boston, in Princeton, in Agawam, Massachusetts, in Philly, and then of course with Dr. Kim. And there are about 5 different lenses that I want you to look at. They are listed there as you listen to the stories of these pastoral leaders, what shaped them, what sense of spirit and destiny did you sense in them going to the particular places that they are. Think about what would be the greatest challenge for you to be called to that particular setting, and what specifically might you see that these leaders did to adapt to the obvious secularization or post-Christian context that they're all working in. And then lastly, what 3 lessons did you learn from meeting these pastoral leaders on the West Coast? This is essay form, 5 pages in length. It's a sense, a reflection upon these interviews that we had with these pastors. From talking to you in the van and around lunch and dinner and stuff, I know that they caused a lot of thinking on your part, lots of discussion that we had. And in fact, it may be hard to assimilate that into 5 pages, but that's the task. The task is, so what really rises to the surface when we let it set? It's been several weeks now since you've been with these pastors, and it's important for you to be able to sort of look at this experience. Remember, experience is never self-interpreting. Just simply because you have an experience doesn't really qualify as something that can move you ahead in your own leadership. You experienced it, but what did it mean? So experience is never self-interpreting. You have to give it meaning, and that's what this kind of exercise is. You've already done it, for Dr. Ziefel, but this is sort of a different slant, particularly focused on our discussions with the pastoral leaders. So that's the assignment that's due. One of the things we're trying to do in this course, and I'll say from the beginning that this is, in a sense, going to be like our previous course on the gospel and culture. This is a big stretch. There's just going to be a lot of information that, in a sense, will just be getting your feet wet. But I do want it to be an introduction to the kind of content that I think is really necessary for you to understand why we are at the point that we're at right now. And there are 2 links that I've given you, lectures by 2 people that I think are really critical for us to help us understand these pieces. So the first lecture is by Francis Schaeffer. Francis Schaeffer was an icon, a philosophical icon back when I was in college. This would have been in the 60s and 70s. He was a Christian philosopher that was years ahead of where we are right now. He predicted it. He understood it in terms of Western philosophy. He understood it in the kinds of decline that began in the 60s and has had its full fruition and full fruiting in the period that we're in right now. If you've never read Schaeffer before, just Google Francis Schaeffer. He's got a whole set of books. He is there and he is not silent. The God Who Is There. All kinds of books that I read when I was back in college. And he was a real guru. He gave us, he was very prophetic and sort of an odd duck. You'll see in the lecture, he actually was preaching at Jerry Falwell's church in Virginia back in the day. And I give you the point at which in the broadcast he begins his lecture. One of his proteges is a guy named Os Guinness, who's still alive today. And there's another lecture by him to help you understand in terms of Western philosophy, in terms of the kinds of changes that were made that bring us to the point we're at right now. One of the things about postmodernity is that it focuses on the present and acts as if we sort of, it's all sort of happened. And that's simply not true, particularly from Western civilization and in terms of biblical understanding. So those two lectures will be really good for you. And the G. Edward Veith book is really the philosophical book that will help you in this course. This is pretty deep reading. The lectures are not simple to understand. But my feeling is that if we're gonna understand and respond well to post-Christian culture, we have to understand how we got here. And so my attempt to help you in a small way is through these lectures and particularly through the Veith book. So we're gonna talk. I want you to introduce you to why we're here. We'll discuss more about that in our class in November. We want to talk about what does it mean, and we'll talk about why do we need to look to the past and look to the future as ways to find our moorings in the present. So the Veith book is really your philosophical base. The book by Gary Tyra, A Missional Orthodoxy, is in a sense a systematic theology for a post-Christian context. And it is thorough, it is a serious work, and we're going to be having a discussion via Zoom with Gary Tyra. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a professor at Vanguard down in Costa Mesa, ordained Assemblies of God, a real thinker, a really bright guy. And reading some of Missional Orthodoxy, particularly the first part of Missional Orthodoxy, the section, just look at the book here for a second, the section called The Foundation of Missional Orthodoxy, which is what he calls Part 1. And I think that it really is as good a piece as I think available. A lot of pop pieces, but Gary does a really great job in solidifying solid theological perspective that I think is really worthwhile. And as a Pentecostal, he obviously has some things to say about the Spirit as well. The Australian book is just I like Aussie writing. It's in a different world. Post-Christianity in the empire, that is the UK and Canada and Australia, is advanced beyond what is occurring here in the United States, and we need to listen up. And Aussies are always brash. They're just their history is a brash history. They got sent over there to survive in this faraway land from England as prisoners, and that sort of shows in their national culture. And it's for me, it's very helpful, and I think you'll find that in that book as well. So I just want to make you aware as well that we will have a discussion with my lawyer friend, Brad Martin, who was with us in Agawam, Massachusetts, at the dinner that night, and also at the Moody Center. And I'm going to want you to listen to, we're going to have a discussion with him about a current situation he's in. That situation is that he, as a lawyer, represents Teen Challenge New England. They are being sued by the Attorney General of Massachusetts. The accusation, which he can talk a little bit more legally about, I guess you'd say, but the bottom line is that the Attorney General is wanting to, in a sense, castigate or punish Teen Challenge for not supposedly holding to proper employment laws of the state of Massachusetts for those people in Teen Challenge that are doing the varieties of, things that they do with sort of the small moving companies, catering businesses, all these painting businesses, all these things that they do as part of their therapy. And it's just a sad situation. The person who is the Attorney General of Massachusetts is an avowed lesbian. She is gunning for a governorship in Massachusetts, and she has decided that Teen Challenge is going to be where she's going to make a stand and show that she's on the side of employees. She's on the side of workers. And this is an example of the kind of thing that we are facing, because Teen Challenge is facing right now, but this is not going to go away. This is the world we're living in, and these are the kinds of realities, and these are the kinds of things that, very fine Christian Pentecostal lawyers like Brad Martin are having to deal with. So I thought we'd have a discussion with him as well. I'm trying to put together when that'll be in our time in November. So if you have any questions about the paper, please email me. Remember to send me both an email at my Northwest email and my Gmail as well. You'll see both of those, I believe, on the syllabus. As always, do that so that I can see it and respond to you quicker. Again, what we're trying to do in this particular course is we've used the field experience to have discussions with pastors who were in the trenches, just like yourself, hearing their stories, hearing how this post-Christian society is expressing itself on the East Coast, and then their stories and how they're trying to respond. That's in a sense a field-based component of this course. But what we need to do in our time together in November is really look at this foundational conceptual piece. How did this happen historically? How did it happen philosophically? What are the implications theologically that can help us find our moorings in the middle of these shifting sands? That's going to be some critical discussions, with having some Zoom conversations with Gary Tyra, with Brad Martin. I think the time will move very, very quickly. We'll talk about the final 2 assignments during class in November. So we're basically trying to do, so how did we get here? How did we get to this post-Christian context? What does it mean? And why do we look to the past, and why do we look to the future to give ourselves moorings in the present? Again, I just remind you that the kind of work we're doing here is uncomfortable work. It's the kind of thing that we did in Gospel and Culture. We're in between things, and it's uncomfortable, and we're trying to find ways in which we can, how did we get here? How in the world did this ever happen? And face the reality that it has happened. We're in the middle of it, and how can we be faithful to the gospel, to people who are not just lost, but who call us bad guys in this whole thing. And that is really a discussion that the Aussie author provides for us. So again, I look forward to seeing you. And you have anything before class, please, particularly about assignment 1, please let me know, and I look forward to seeing you. Bye.